All right, this morning, thank you, Richard, for reading all of that, the whole chapter 5. And he comes up to me earlier, he's like, I'm not reading all those chapters, am I? I'm like, no, just chapter 5. It's all right. We're in Song of Solomon, which is an interesting book in the Bible, and some may wonder, I don't get it. Like, why? My friend, I keep going back to my friend Bill. We did like a marriage retreat one time, and the host of the marriage retreat did the Song of Solomon, and Bill's like, this is stupid, I don't understand this, right? And sometimes you can feel that way as you read these verses, so hopefully this morning it'll help break down and maybe explain a little bit. So we will be perusing 3 chapters. Means we're not going to go into depth in any one chapter. We'll just pick out the pertinent information as it pertains and speaks about human love and how that correlates to the kind of love also that God has for us. So keep that in mind as we go through this. Human love, man and a woman together, and also the love that God has for us. So last week, if you were here, we looked at the beginning of this interesting book of the Bible, and I likened it to the courtship between a man and a woman. And we saw that in this courtship, the couple is not married yet because they have not consummated the marriage, so to speak. They have not been married at this point. And so it was the courtship phase between a man and a woman. We looked at that last week. This morning we'll examine the chapter through the lens of marriage. And the title of this morning's message is, I heard it in a love song, and it's not courtship this morning, it is marriage. Because as we discovered last Sunday, this is a love song that was written by King Solomon. Yesterday was Valentine's Day, so guys, I hope you didn't miss that, right? You're in trouble. But Mona and me, we've been together for a long time, and we don't really do anything special for Valentine's Day anymore. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't show our love to one another like each and every day, right? So we do that because that's what's important. It's not just a one day out of the year kind of thing. It's like an everyday kind of thing where you love one another each and every day of the year. So as we begin in the Song of Solomon, or as some translations call it, the Song of Songs, we see here in chapter 5 that I think of this as marriage in its infancy. In its infancy. Now, last week we saw 3 distinct people or groups of people in this song. And see what most translations call the lover, or just he. Some translations say he. Some actually put the name Solomon in there. And so we see that. And then we see a woman's voice in the song, and which can be called the beloved, as what Richard read in the New International Version. Or some translations say she, or even the Shulamite woman. And the third is a group of people which are called friends or others. And so we see here that this is pertaining to chapter 5 is marriage in its infancy. It's the beginning of marriage, right? And so we need to understand who is speaking for this book of wisdom literature to make sense. So I'll try to keep that separate and keep that pointed out as we go through the text this morning. And in chapter 5, beginning in verse 1, we see the man, the lover, is speaking, and he says, I have come into my garden, my sister, my bride. I have gathered my myrrh and my spice. I have eaten my honeycomb and my honey. I have drunk my wine and my milk. Eat, O friends, and drink your fill, O lovers. Now right here in this verse, there are actually 2 people speaking, two groups here. The lover says, I've come into my garden, my sister, my bride. I've gathered my myrrh with the spice. I've eaten the honeycomb and my honey. I've drunk my wine and my milk. And then we see another one saying, eat, O friends, and drink your fill, O lovers. Some commentators I read say that this last sentence, eat, O friends, and drink your fill, O lovers, is the friends or the others speaking to the couple. And that may be. But they also say that the man is talking about the consummation of the marriage in verse 1. Because he does explicitly say, I have come into my garden, my sister, my bride. I have gathered my myrrh and my spice. I have eaten my honeycomb and my honey. I have drunk my wine and my milk. The couple that we looked at last week who were in the process of courtship are now married. He's talking about what has happened in the bedroom. And as erotic as you think this sounds, it's not. It's not in the least bit obscene in any way. Because where we see someone or some group commending him on their love, as they say, eat, O friends, and drink your fill, O lovers, some believe that this is God himself approving and affirming this marriage. He's approving and affirming the love and the act of love they have shown one another. All this to say that sex inside of marriage is a valued thing in the eyes of God. He created both male and female with the desire for one another. And it's an awesome thing when it's within the borders and the confines of marriage. It has been society and godless culture that has ruined this for many, many people. It's ruined the idea of intimacy that God had planned for his people. All too often, both sexes get their idea of what making love should be like from a distorted view that they hear or from pornographic material. But as we see here, from the start of their marriage is a beautiful and fulfilling thing that they share together. And it's not a shameful thing or something that's wrong. But as we see here in the text, here's what we see. Right from the beginning, there's a problem where indifference can set in. What we see here between verses 1 and 2 is that time has elapsed. The honeymoon, as they say, is over. They are still young marrieds, but they are not newly married, if that makes sense, between verse 1 and 2. You guys remember the game, the Newlywed Game? You guys remember that? Okay. I didn't realize it, but I looked it up, and the original show with Bob Eubanks as host went from 1966 to 1988. That's a long time to be on TV, right? I didn't realize the original show, like when I watched it as a kid, that there's a lot of stuff that kind of went over my head, right? There's a lot of raunchiness in some of the questions, and like making whoopee. I'm like, okay, that didn't make sense to me as a kid, right? But even in that game, it showed that people who love one another and get married sometimes don't know the person that they married as well as they thought they did. As I mentioned last Sunday, Mona and myself, we've known each other since grade school, but I got to tell you, you don't really know someone until you have to live with them. Mona would say amen if she was here, right? We all have our quirks. We're all individuals. And when two become one, is what the Bible calls marriage, the two become one, it's not always easy. Questions become the norm, and doubt sets in. Like, did this really happen? Who is this person that I married? What did I get myself into, right? And that doubt and that uncertainty can lead to one or the other or both shutting down and shutting each other out. And in the very early stages, the marriage can get strained right from the beginning to the point where the couple becomes indifferent to one another. And I looked it up, and according to statistics, most divorces happen within the first 2 years of marriage. And so it's just starting out, right? And I think that's what's happening here. The honeymoon's over, there's some indifference going on, and the other thing that can happen is advances are mistaken. Verse 2, I slept, but my heart was awake. Listen, my lover is knocking. Open to me, my sister, my darling, my dove, my flawless one. My head is drenched with dew, my hair with the dampness of the night. I have taken off my robe. Must I put it on again? I've washed my feet. Must I soil them again? And we see here that this is a dream sequence, or maybe it's real life. I don't know exactly what's going on here, but it just maybe feels like a dream to the beloved. Her lover wants to come into her, but she's already retired for the night. The reality is she's probably not in the mood, right? That's what it's kind of saying here. I have taken off my robe. Must I put it on again? I have washed my feet. Must I soil them again? Now, she may be hesitant for a number of reasons. Maybe she just isn't secure about the relationship. Maybe their past experience in that area maybe was a bad experience for her. Maybe she doesn't know how to respond to his advances, or maybe she has responded too much and she just needs a break. Don't know what's going on here. You see, here's what I do know from experience, though. Men and women are different in the way we show love and affection. I've been told a time or two, that's all you think about. Men like to feel loved in a certain way, and women like to feel loved in another way. And having said that, we're all different even to this aspect. There's a great book that when I do premarital counseling, I have the couples read, and it's The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. If you have not read that book, I suggest you get that book and read it, even if you've been married for a while, right? And real quick, for some people, their love language is different in the way that they feel loved. One of the love languages is acts of service, where, you know, if your spouse is their love language is acts of service, you do things for them. You do the little things, you do the big things to make them feel loved. And if that's your love language, that's how you feel loved, because they're doing that for you. Receiving gifts is another love language, where you give your spouse a gift so they feel loved. Quality time is another aspect of a love language. Somebody has that love language. And for some people, it's where you think, if you love me, you'll spend time with me. And then there's words of affirmation, where you have to hear those words, those encouraging words, those words of affirmation, where your love of your life tells you over and over how wonderful you are and how much they love you. And finally, the love language of personal touch. That could be a back rub or holding hands or whatever, or as we see here, what has happened with this couple here in verse 1. And as we see here in chapter 5, the beloved's lover wanted that personal touch. He wanted to come into her room and be intimate with the woman he loved. All this to say that when you're in the early years of marriage, you're just learning. You're just learning each other's desires, each other's drives, all of that. It's a constant learning process. And you're learning to have that process of just living with one another and putting up with one another. And love languages can sometimes be confusing and mistaken. It can still happen even if you've been married for a while. But there's something else going on here too. And that's not that indifference can set in, but advances are mistaken, but the trap of temptations. Verse 6. I opened for my lover, but my lover had left. He was gone. My heart sank at his departure. I looked for him, but did not find him. I called him, but he did not answer. The watchmen found me as they made their rounds in the city. They beat me, they bruised me, they took away my cloak, those watchmen of the walls. The beloved heard her lover at the door, and she neglected his advances. So when she did get up and open the door, he was gone. And when she went to look for him in the city, she called for him and couldn't find him anywhere. The reality is, the game she played could have been costly if she loses her mate. And she goes out to find him, and what she finds is trouble. No longer does she have the security that she had with him. He's not with her in the dark city, and the watchmen find her and beat her. Now here's where a lot of disagreement as to how to interpret this section of text. If taken symbolically, this refers to her, as I've read, losing her virginity. If looked at as only a dream, then she is sorry and ashamed for shutting the door to the man she loves. If it's literally just an ancient love song, then I do believe this is meant as a metaphor for missing the love of her life. Her husband cannot be found, and she is vulnerable to anyone who can cause her harm. And she goes to her friends, and they're no help at all. See, these girls, I kind of think about this. These girls that talked to her next could have been in her wedding party, right? They could have been her bridesmaids and all of that. And they may have said, we told you not to marry him in the first place. It's kind of what they're saying here. And in fact, they do tell her to forget this man. She pleaded with them in verse 8. O daughters of Jerusalem, I charge you, help me find my lover. What will you tell him? Tell him I am faint with love. And their response to her was, how is your beloved better than the others? How is he beloved better than the others that you charge us so? It's like they're saying, don't waste your time. There's other fish in the sea. You can find someone better. Be happy. You don't need him. What they're doing is tempting her to abandon and leave her husband. And all too often when a couple is having difficulty in marriage, the very first bit of advice they receive is just quit. But just leave, get a divorce. It's not worth it. They're not making you happy. Just do your own thing. Bad advice. Terrible advice. The Bible, Malachi chapter 2, tells us that God hates divorce. And now having said that, and we've talked about it before, there are some circumstances that's allowed, and I'm not going to get into those particular situations this morning. But even in those allowable circumstances, I want you to know that God can and does heal relationships. Even when you think they are too far gone and unrepairable. And I know this for at least two reasons. Number one, because God is love and he loves couples. He loves couples to love one another, and we saw that in verse 1 of chapter 5 this morning. And second, I know this from experience because he healed mine and Mona's marriage, and we were surely headed for divorce many years ago, and we're still together today. God truly is love, and for a lack of a better phrase, God loves love, if that makes any sense. He really does. God loves love, and he loves you as well. And I want you to know that this morning. God loves you. He loves you if you're not a believer yet. He loves you if you're a believer and you've grown cold and indifferent like the beloved here. He loves you if you are indifferent to his advances towards you. He loves you in the midst of your temptations, where the world is telling you your walk with the Lord doesn't make any difference. Don't listen to that. Because as much as the Lord wants you to have a special relationship with your significant other, he wants to have a good and personal relationship with you. So as we move on through the song, chapter 6, we see marriage growing towards connection. And as we remember that this is a Song of Solomon, we can see how he paints for us a picture of differing aspects of relationships. There was the courtship and the couple in the early years of marriage, and now I think we see a growing, more mature, long-lasting relationship. And don't forget as we go through this song that this can be, and as we've seen, a metaphor for Jesus and us too. So don't forget that, right? This is Jesus wooing us and having a relationship with us as well, and things that grow together. So you see the couple growing closer to one another, and it's also a picture of how a believer can grow closer to God. And we see here in verse 1 of chapter 6 that the beloved asks, where has your lover gone, most beautiful of women? Which way did your lover turn that we may look for him with you? And she answers, my lover has gone down to his garden, to the beds of spices, to browse in the gardens, to gather lilies. I am my lover, and my lover is mine. He browses among the lilies. And then he chimes in and says, you are beautiful, my darling, as Tisra, lovely as Jerusalem, majestic as troops with banners. You know there are difficult times in marriages, right? There are difficult times as a marriage matures. What I mean is, the longer you've been married, it still takes work. There still has problems. There's still going to have struggles, but you find common ground in those struggles. And you come to appreciate one another more. And as your relationship grows, you may have already figured out your spouse's love language and what makes them happy, as well as the buttons you can push to set them off, right? We learn these things. Absolutely. But as we grow toward connection, I believe this is the hardest part, but it's also the most rewarding part of the relationship. Because it's usually the time, I think of it when you're raising the family, right? You're raising your family. You have common goals. You work together to accomplish those goals. You're both interested in the child's activities. You have times that's just special between the two of you. But as I said, there may be these years where you're not only raising and nurturing your children, but from experience, again, not only was those times of raising the children, but then those are times of also of maybe taking care of ailing parents. Maybe there's health problems within that. Maybe that's a time of your life and your marriage where you lose your parents, they pass away. But I look back at that time in mine and Mona's life, and I realize that those difficult, trying times were the times where we grew closer together. It's where we grew closer together and depended on one another more. See, difficult times is not the time to have two selfish people pulling against each other. It's the time for people, a couple, to grow together and join forces and work together. The beloved's lover knows this very well, and their commitment remains intact. She's still in it for the long haul, and so is he. If it was a dream that she had in chapter 5, then it was a nightmare, and it changed her outlook on the relationship she has with him. Look at how her lover still praises her. Verse 4. You are beautiful, my darling, as Tisra, lovely as Jerusalem, majestic as troops with banners. Turn your eyes from me, they overwhelm me. Your hair is like a flock of goats descending from Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of sheep coming up from the washing. Each has its twin, not one of them is alone. Your temples behind your veil are like the halves of pomegranate. Man, I tell you, Solomon had a way with words, right? I read that to Mona this morning, and she just didn't get it. I'm like praising her. I said, your hair is like the goats descending from Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of sheep coming up from the washing. And it's just like, you're weird. I'm trying to impress her, but But I think this just shows that after all they've been through, this couple right here, they are still committed to one another. They're still committed to making the marriage work. And it's like that in your relationship with the Lord as well. Each day, we are supposed to grow closer to him. And he is in it for the long haul. Let me tell you, he has promised that his commitment to you will never end. It will stay intact because he said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. And here in chapter 6, I love how this man, after the years, still finds admiration for his beloved. And he continues in verse 8. 60 queens there may be, and 80 concubines and virgins beyond number, but my dove, my perfect one, is unique, the only daughter of her mother, the favorite of the one who bore her. The maidens saw her and called her blessed. The queens and concubines praised her. That's what happens in a long-term relationship. You get to the point where you appreciate uniqueness, right? Appreciate uniqueness. I said this last week, and I'm going to say it again this morning, but you are the only you. There's never been anyone like you, and there never will be anyone exactly like you. God created you to be you. And that's how special you are. That's how special you are to him. That's how special in that uniqueness that you can appreciate in your spouse or they can appreciate in you. But that specialness can also be irritating to the person you live with. Am I right? Mona tells me all the time, like I said, she says, you're weird. I said, thank you, honey, so are you. But it is her uniqueness that draws me to her. And I'm glad that she's the only her because I couldn't put up with two of them. I'm kidding, okay? But I love her for who she is, and I love her the way God made her, right? And I appreciate her uniqueness that sets her apart from everyone else more every day. The man here in the song really appreciates how his beloved is so different from all the other women. He says, but my dove, verse 9, my dove, my perfect one, is unique. The only daughter of her mother, the favorite of the one who bore her. If Solomon is writing this love song to his special someone, then This is an interesting part because she must be a very special person. Because Solomon knows all about women. He's a player, okay? 1 King 11:3 tells us that Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. And for the wisest man to ever live, that's not very smart. But as we saw, this is a love song that he wrote. And I don't believe this is his real life, but it's probably some of his experiences he brought into this song as well. So after his praise for his beloved, she responds in verse 11, chapter 6. I went down to the grove of nut trees to look at the new growth in the valley, to see if there is any vines had budded or the pomegranates were in bloom. Before I realized it, my desire set me among the royal chariots of my people. She's working toward their love and desire to grow stronger. That's what she's talking about here. She's expecting new growth in the valley. She's expecting new growth in their marriage. She's looking to see if there's any glimpse of a bud on the vines or if there's any pomegranates that are in bloom. This is the season for new things to grow in the valley. Just like it is the season of marriage for new growth to occur. And for that to happen, there has to be some desire there. Just like I said about your spiritual growth, it takes work, it takes desire to grow. You can't grow spiritually by just standing around. You have to be moving in the direction and wanting to grow. It's the same way in our marriages as well. The desire to grow closer and stronger needs to be there. That desire has to be there. And sometimes it takes hard work to get that done. Sometimes it takes sacrifices in our life for that to happen on both parts. And I've said many times over and over, the effort that you put into it is worth it, and the results will be better than you can ever imagine. We've seen marriage in its infancy. We've seen marriage as they grow closer to one another in connection. And in chapter 7, I believe is where we see marriage living in maturity. Verse 1 of chapter 7. How beautiful your sandaled feet, O prince's daughter. Your graceful legs are like jewels, the work of a craftsman's hands. Your navel is rounded goblet that never lacks blended wine. Your waist is a mound of wheat encircled by lilies. Your breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle. Your neck is like the ivory tower. Your eyes are like the pools of Heshbon by the gate of Bath Rabbim. Your nose is like the tower of Lebanon, looking toward Damascus. Your head crowns you like Mount Carmel. Your hair is like royal tapestry. The king is held captive by its tresses. How beautiful you are, and how pleasing, O love, with your delights. I liken this to a marriage that stood the test of time. I think there's solidness here. The kids are grown. You're either retired or you're well on your way to retirement. The things that you thought were important back then just don't seem so important any longer. The things that you used to fight and argue about just seem kind of silly now. This is a good season of marriage. But for many married couples, I got to tell you, and I'm warning you, this is the shortest season. And all this to say, enjoy one another. Love each other. Pay a little extra attention to your spouse during this season of marriage. Praise one another more. Because you never know when the day will come when you can't do that any longer. And as we see here, this is the season of married life where you find permanence. Verse 1, how beautiful your sandaled feet, O prince's daughter. Your graceful legs are like jewels, the work of a craftsman's hand. And verse 7, your stature is like that of a palm, and your breasts like clusters of fruit. He finds permanence. Something that's absolutely solid. And she is solid as a rock. Her feet are beautiful. Her legs are like jewels. And if he's referring to diamonds, she's solid. This point in life, she's not going anywhere. They have found their place in each other's lives, and they wouldn't have it any other way. There's stability in the relationship. It's durable. He knows those feet. He knows those legs. And he finds comfort because they never change. There's familiarity. This is a good place to be in a relationship. Not taking one another for granted, but just knowing that you can be assured that this is permanent. It's the same way in our relationship with Jesus. It gets better every day. There used to be a song, I don't know, maybe you guys have heard it, maybe not. I don't remember who it was by, but I remember the chorus, and I remember when I was a kid growing up in church, some people would sing this. Sweeter gets the journey every day. Anybody ever heard that song? Sweeter gets the journey every day. Serving Jesus really pays. I get happy in the heavenly way because sweeter gets the journey every day. Maybe one of these days when I learn to play my guitar, I'll stand up here and sing it for you guys, all right? That'll be a while. But it's the same way in marriage, or it should be. The journey we're both on should get sweeter every day. Because long-term commitments and maturing marriages are also where you find satisfaction. Verse 2. Your navel is round a goblet that never lacks blended wine. Your waist is a mound of wheat circled by lilies. Your breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle. Your neck is like an ivory tower. Your eyes are the pools of Heshbon by the gate of Beth Rabbim. Your nose is like the Tower of Lebanon looking toward Damascus. Your head crowns you like Mount Carmel. Your hair is like royal tapestry. The king is captive by its tresses. Oh, how beautiful you are and how pleasing, O love, with your delights. You know, I don't think I hear Mona say that's all you think about as much as I used to. Maybe she just got tired of saying it, or maybe I just don't think about it as much as I used to. But I will say, finding satisfaction in your spouse changes over time. You come to appreciate the little things that they do for you. You especially appreciate the big gestures of love that they show you. What I'm saying is as you grow older together, your relationship changes into more of just a one or two-dimensional kind of relationship. It's now a multi-dimensional kind of relationship. And as you grow together, it's just natural that you know each other better than you did when you first got married, or even during the years when you was raising your children. And the things that bring satisfaction to your life, and the special activities and special quality time, those are the things, right? Those are the things that you find satisfaction in. And lastly, marriage living maturity is where you enjoy each other. Verse 11. Come, my lover, let us go to the countryside. Let us spend the night in the villages. Let us go early to the vineyards to see if the vines have budded, if their blossoms have opened, if the pomegranates are in bloom. There I will give you my love. The beloved invites her man to just go out to the countryside with her and spend time. Growing old together is a special time that God gives a couple. It's a time to enjoy that person. Not that person, not what the person brings into the marriage, not what that person really does, but you enjoy that person for who they are. You just enjoy them. As I said last Sunday, and what we must remember is that your husband, your wife, is a gift from God. And so I should cherish that gift. And enjoy the gift of love that the Lord gives and the gift of love that the Lord ordains and calls good. Sweeter gets the journey every day. For better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, till the Lord calls us home. Let's pray.